I just finished watching The Wild Robot after hearing about it from everybody, that this is a life-changing movie. You have to go see it. It's the most incredible thing, and today we're going to be talking about that. While I didn't think it was probably, I don't know if it was movie of the year, it was very, very good, but people are talking about it like it's some big, giant, life-changing movie that they've watched. It wasn't that. It was just an extremely well-done and great movie, and we're going to be talking about that with spoilers ahead. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with 20 YouTube channels. We got a little visitor with us, a little guest recording with us right now because I'm waiting for my wife to get home. She's out for a drive with her dad, so she's in a good mood, so I'm a little bit tired, so I thought I'd start the recording with her, see how it goes, regardless. So, I want to talk about before I actually saw this movie, because I had zero intentions on seeing this movie, like, literally none. I've seen the previews for it for a very long time. The movie was getting a lot of hype. Every single time that I watched it, the trailer, I mean, like, whether it was in the theaters or just saw an ad somewhere, I would turn to my wife or whoever I was with and I'd be like, that movie looks really, really dumb, and I am not going to go see that. I would almost laugh at the trailer. Then, of course, the movie comes out, and we're hearing more and more about it. Everybody's saying this movie is really good. Everybody's saying this movie is life-changing. Everybody's been talking about what a fantastic experience they've had watching this movie. And long story short, I definitely agree with that. Like, I loved it. I'd probably give it like a 10 out of 10, to be honest with you. And don't worry, like, if you're new to the channel, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into every little piece of the plot that we can. But I wanted to touch on it a little bit because this movie just shocked me. It shocked me. The other thing that I heard about before I saw this movie is my wife told me it was made by the same people who made How to Train Your Dragon. As somebody who believes that's the greatest trilogy of all time, I said, if it's by the team that made How to Train Your Dragon, I trust them and I'm willing to give this a chance. And I even had a friend with me, if you're coming over from the Fortnite channel, it was Let's See. He's like, even if you have to drag yourself to go see this movie, it is worth it to go see this movie. So I was like, okay, you know what? We're going to watch a movie. My wife and I finally watched it. We put this little one to bed over here, and it was a great time. But of course, as we do on this channel, I don't want to just dive into what I thought about the movie in general. I want to talk about the movie from the start, from the beginning, from the get-go. And this one keeps dragging my microphone. She's probably going to start reaching for I knew your hand was going to go up there. She's going to be home soon, so I'm going to record with her for a little bit. My mic's going to be in a little bit of an awkward position over here. I'm going to be bouncing this one a little bit. And please let me know, guys, if you'd like me to exclude her from videos moving forward, if you'd like me to just get to the subject matter. So, and the movie starts off right away with this robot. And I had no idea really what it was going to be about, to be honest with you. And this robot came, there was a shipwreck, and it was this, I don't remember what the exact robot was called. It was like Rosm or something like that, but ended up being nicknamed Roz a little bit. So she ended up washing up onto a little bit of an island just with wildlife, and she was supposedly the only surviving, the only surviving robot of her kind, and she's just like this AI robot that's supposed to do all your household things, do all your chores, be your personal assistant, like something that's coming very, very soon down the road. But she crashed, she's unboxed, and she was accidentally activated by the wildlife. Now, I didn't expect this movie to be like as funny as it was, to be honest with you, because she'd walk around like this weird robot going, hey, how can I assist you today? And all the animals hated her, they were scared of her, they were running away from her, they were hurting her. Like, I found a lot of humor in like the stupid little things that she was doing, trying to be friendly, but it just not working at all. She just keeps injuring herself. She keeps like terrifying all of the animals. And I like how this circled back around too. I thought that was really, really well done because the animals all ended up enjoying her, right? But then, and this is where I didn't expect the movie to go because I was confused. I didn't know if it was going to be one of those movies where it's like this robot just not speaking and kind of walking around wildlife, but I don't know if it was predictable. I certainly didn't predict it. The robot ended up sitting down, chilling, and ended up learning all of the language because of its, like, they described it as one of the most, like, highest technology, AI, futuristic things that can go on, and it's incredible because so she ended up speaking to all of the animals, and it turns out all the animals kind of just have their own language, right? But what's even funnier about it is I like even the fact that she woke up, and I like that it's weirdly, because it's not realistic at all. Obviously, the AI is realistic, and I think that's something that's definitely possible, but I'm talking about, like, I enjoyed the fact that, and it's a little bit difficult how to put it, because it's not realistic in the sense where all of the animals are speaking to each other, but it's realistic in the sense that this robot's here, and the animals would just be terrified of her, and be, like, breaking her apart, screwing off the pieces. Like if the robot dropped into a little forest on an island and there were a bunch of animals there and she tried like speaking to them, helping them, invading their home, the animals would attack, the animals would run away. And even like the subtle little killing too. That's something that we're going to get into. Like when we meet the fox, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's just like a bunch of little stuff like that that I found pretty interesting. Sorry, she's pulling on my mic over there. So anyways, her whole task, the AI is driven to just have her find a task, complete a task, everything will be okay. Then she could like send a transmitter home or something like that. Or if that transmitter was for when she's lost, I'm honestly not so sure, to be honest with you. There ended up being some like really funny scenes where she learned the language, she could, and this one over here is doing a little bit too much interrupting here. So I'm going to pause the recording for a little bit until my wife gets home, because this one, it's bedtime for her. It's getting a little fussy. She was tired. I thought she would just chill with me. Sorry for the jump cut. I will see you in a second. Sorry about that, everybody. Just put the baby to bed. Now my wife is laying down with her, and it's like the super cute thing that I live to see every night. It's fantastic. Anyways, so as I was saying, there ended up being some really funny parts with like Roz being chased by a bear and her trying to just help people, but the animals are just like, what the heck is this giant robot thing? And even then I was sitting back and I was like, what the heck is this movie going to be about? Because I was thinking, is this thing even going to talk throughout the entire time? Regardless, she ends up sending that signal transmitter to her to home base, wherever that is in the world, and she ends up getting attacked by a bear. She ends up getting the chase, and all of a sudden, after the chase, she ends up crushing a bird's nest. And this is what I was talking about, like, when I didn't expect the movie to be so, like, cruel, in the sense where the robot even, like, lifts up the dead mother's wing, and all that's left there is one singular surviving egg. And this is where the parental movie that it is kind of kicks off. Roz then takes the egg, and this is where we're introduced to Fink. And actually, Fink ended up being an awesome character who I didn't trust throughout like the first little bit of the movie, obviously, because Fink wanted to eat the egg, and there was a really funny chase scene with the robot using like all of its crazy tools, the fox being the little weasel trying to get it, but it's like, okay, here's your egg, take your egg, and then the robot would take the egg and the fox would just try to take it again. Very cool. But then the fox started sticking around, and I know I'm jumping the gun just a little bit here, but I did not trust that fox the entire time, because I was kind of thinking, like, if you guys watched, spoilers, even though the movie's been out for a while now, Godzilla vs. Kong with that little chimp, and it kept following, but I just didn't trust the whole time, knowing that it was trying to kill King Kong. That's kind of how I felt about the fox. Like, yeah, he was playing nice, he was being nice, he was even helping to raise the little goose, but I still thought that he was going to want to eat it with time. But the fox ended up being one of the best characters in the entire movie. Regardless, the egg ends up hatching, and this, I don't know if this is gonna make me sound really, really stupid. My wife had to explain it to me. I didn't know that gosling or a little goose, or I don't know if it's for every bird, but it imprints on the first thing they see, and then they see that as their mother. I didn't know that about birds. I don't know if that's common knowledge, and that might have just made me sound really, really dumb. Regardless, that had to be explained to me, and I didn't know that, and they explained it like later on in the movie, but it's a weird concept to think about. Like, nature's so fascinating to me, man. Like, but regardless, Roz did not know this, and she's just trying to go back home. She's trying to get the transmitter, but then Gosling ends up just pecking at it and destroying it. So Roz is still walking around with this brand new baby that the robot has no idea how to handle, and this is where we're introduced to the possum mother. I don't recall her name, my apologies, where she explains, okay, you have to teach it to swim, you have to teach it to fly, and you have to teach it to do something else. I don't remember what that is. Is it hibernating? No. Is it flying away? Why am I having a blank? No, wait. Flying was the last one. It was flying. No, okay. There was, eating, flying. No, eating, swimming, flying. That's what it was. Sorry. Fitting in wasn't part of it. It just needed to make sure that the little baby ended up surviving. And this just leads us to the part where, again, like, Roz is going through the stages of just like having a baby, learning how this entire process goes. And what the best part about it is Fink is helping her. At this point, I still didn't trust Fink, by the way. And I liked the idea that the baby even ended up like acting like a robot a little bit. It was really fun. It was really wholesome. Fink was at the same time, and this is where I was talking about like how it's weirdly cruel but funny. Fink is explaining how nature's going on. He like just takes a crab and like boils it and like is just having fun, you know? He ends up finding shelter. He ends up having food. He ends up like realizing that he's living life on easy mode, hanging around Roz. So all of them end up cohabiting together, and it's a really, really strange dynamic that I didn't expect to come from a movie, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And I don't recall when exactly this happened during the movie, but I didn't trust Fink the entire time until we had that really heartwarming scene where Gosling or Brightbill ended up going to sleep on Roz's neck. And then the fox was kind of sitting back like, yeah, that's just what they do. They cuddle or whatever he was saying, something along those lines. And then the robot shuts down, puts his tail between his legs, walks over to Roz, cuddles up. So he needed companionship, and he really, really loved his new family. And that's when I was like, okay, this guy's a good guy. Because I was still thinking that, like, one day the fox is going to be a fox, and the fox is going to try to eat the bird. But then we move on to the next part of the movie, and it has me sitting back and thinking again, like, okay, what exactly is this movie going to be about? Because we have a little bit of a time skip. Everybody's cohabiting together. Brightbill grew up. He is now, I don't know what age he is, but it seems like he's kind of like teenagery. Roz ends up trying to teach him to swim still, and he finally gets the hang of it just a little bit. So he starts to go hang out with the other geese. He gets bullied for being like, hello, fellow birds. My name is my name is Brightbill. How are you today? Stuff like that. Obviously, the guy's going to get bullied. Not saying it's right. It's just expected to happen. He's kind of beaten down. He gets attacked by fish. Roz ends up having to come save him again. He still can't fly with the birds. He still can't swim with the birds. Nobody cares about him. Nobody likes him. He's feeling very upset. So he ends up lashing out at Roz, and kind of understandably so, but at the same time, not really. Turns out that Brightbill was never told that Roz wasn't his actual mother. I don't know how you can figure that out, even as you grow up, but hey, you know what? It's the movie. We're going to roll with it. And I have very conflicting feelings about that, because at the end of the day, Roz did kill his family. And he was like, you're not my mother. Get out of here. And he like ended up having a fit, freaking out on Roz. You can't feel anything, but Roz ended up actually did feeling something. Roz ended up developing feelings and even love at some point, which she probably did have love at this point throughout the movie. But I couldn't help but sit back and be like, that's a funny way to thank Roz for saving you. But at the same time, I understand his anger, and I don't really know who's correct. He's kind of correct and not correct at the same time. Was it right to be lied to? No, but like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do in that situation. Thank God, like, I don't have any sort of situation like that where my mom ended up killing my supposed real family, you know? But this is where we see the advancement in Roz, because Roz ends up feeling very sad, very guilty. She wants to learn more about herself, and instead of actually using her transmitter to go home, because she ended up going back to her crash site, figuring out there was another robot, figuring out where she came from, instead of following her programming, she ended up having free will and wanted to look after Brightbill, which is, it's so crazy, because I find things like this fascinating, because I always wonder if this is something that's possible within our lifetime. I know the robots are coming. I know the AI is already here. And honestly, you know, they say like technology is 10 years in the future already than we've even seen it. There probably is already robots, just like not to the extent of Roz, but I always wonder, and it's such a weird thing, because I'm a believer in a soul. And the machines don't have that. But if the AI can get so advanced and continuously advance itself, doesn't it become a person? Doesn't it understand feelings? Or is it literally incapable of understanding feelings? Regardless, I find all that stuff incredibly interesting. And Roz, and what this movie presented is Roz ended up developing feelings. She ended up developing like her own heart. She even talked about like, instead of thinking here, instead of thinking with my program, I'm thinking with here. Roz then searches out the master goose to try and help Brightbill learn how to fly, and we have this big whole training scene where yeah, you know what? We don't like each other, or at least the one-way relationship is kind of severed with Brightbill, excuse me, I keep wanting to say Gosling, with Brightbill like disliking Roz, but not really at the same time, still feeling love, not expressing all of that. But long story short, he ends up being accepted into the migration flock, is that what you want to call it? And he ends up preparing to fly away. He's been taken under like the leader's wing, and they're getting set. He's totally okay. They end up flying away. And I understand what everybody was saying too, in like the parental sense. Like it's a movie for all ages, because you really felt like Roz feeling bad for Brightbill and vice versa. And I like the messaging as well, with Brightbill really regretting not telling Roz that he loves her, because the issue is, he might not have been able to tell her ever. Thankfully, the movie ended up having a happy ending, but regardless, it's something important to consider for your own life. Then Roz ended up feeling very, what do you call it, like, I don't want to say misplaced. She's completed her task. And then we saw that through her own eyes, like task completed, the birds flying away. So she's feeling like a lack of purpose. And again, just showing that her technology is advancing. She's become an actual person. She ended up activating her transmitter very briefly. That was enough time for it to reach wherever it was. I don't think it ever explained exactly where they were, but on an island far away. Doesn't really matter, does it? Regardless, it was brief enough to the fact where they ended up reaching wherever they came from. We then had a whole scene with all of the geese flying into I don't know if it was the compound actually where she was made, or if it was just some town where they all work. I don't know if it was explained that like just humanity was kind of gathered there. It's kind of alluded to that. A little bit unclear, but regardless, they end up finding a ton of roses. There's nothing to really break down about that entire scene where Brightbill was completely comfortable with all the robots. He led them all to safety. The elder geese started sacrificing himself, distracting, and then Brightbill ended up being a hero, and it's kind of setting up for him to be accepted for when he comes back. But we then receive a little bit of a jump cut because Roz ended up shutting down, and she was awakened by Fink because they are in like the worst snowstorm of all time apparently, and it was kind of evident because everything was completely buried. And what Roz ends up doing, and what's funny is Fink didn't want to do it, and that's funny because my wife looked at me during the movie and she was like, "Oh, that's you," because I'm more of a save your family and loved ones type person. If somebody's along the way, yeah, sure, but I'm gonna be okay in my house. You know, if there was the worst snowstorm of all time, I wouldn't go out like actively looking for people like Roz. I'd be like, okay, nope, I'm very thankful that I'm in my house. My family's here. So it was funny. My wife looked at me and said, "You," because Fink was like, you know, we could have the whole island to ourselves. Are you sure you want to go look for people? Because he was cold. He wanted to find safety. But Roz ended up working overtime in order to save all the animals because, again, she's becoming a actual person with actual feelings. She rescues pretty well all of the main animals. I don't know if they showed anybody dying. Yeah, they did. I remember like there was some people that was too late. Like she picked up like a feather or something. I don't recall. But all of the prey and all of the predators ended up being confined into Roz's house. And it made for a very, very funny moment where Fink was actually the guy like, okay, hey, don't touch that. That's Brightbill's. Hey, Roz brought you all together. They ended up having this pretty cool speech, to be honest with you. It was kind of a little bit cliche, but it ended up working for the tone of the movie. I enjoyed like just all of those different animals interacting with each other. It was funny, like the bear, the most cruel one of them all, was the guy to be like, I will not hurt anybody, I'll not attack anybody. They all ended up cuddling up together. They all ended up hibernating together, which was really wholesome, to be honest with you. But I did really laugh at everybody just hating each other, the skunk spraying people, everybody chasing each other, everybody absolutely hating each other. And that's what I kind of liked. And that's what I was alluding to at the beginning when I was first talking about this, how it's realistic, but it's not. Like, you can't put a bunch of predators and prey in together and expect them all to get along. But then the unrealistic part about it comes where a speech can settle them all and they all want to cohabitate together. Months then roll by, and then we're brought into the brand new scene with Roz awakening, seeing that all of the animals have honored the hibernation truce, and everybody just kind of became friends after that. And I was kind of thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if nature worked like that? Every animal could get along, but unfortunately we live like in a ridiculously cruel world. But now the Universal Roz bots, I remember Universal, that's all I remember. The ship came back. They figured out where Roz was because the transmitter did reach there. And the little robot came, the one that's the other AI, and is like, hey, we need to study what's in that brain because you decided to go against your programming and you are having your own feelings. You are feeling love. You are doing all these things. Roz initially was about to go with them, and then Brightbill ended up coming back. Brightbill was a hero. He had this great reunition with Fink, and then Roz ended up, because he succeeded, she took off, task complete, and she was about to go back willingly. She ended up hearing Brightbill, wanted to get off, and she even showed, and that's what really cool, right, about the robot, she even showed that she lied. She's like, oh, I just left my whatever transmitter, she said, and then she's like, I'll be right back, and then Fink was all proud because she ended up lying to the other robot, and this is where we're brought to a shocking fight scene. Like, I didn't know what to expect from this movie, but I did not expect to see a fight scene, and it was a well-done fight scene, by the way, with all of, like, the fire starting, the animals having to work together to put out the fire, Roz learning what she learned about all the animals. Like, you could see, like, she's running like a deer, and she ended up morphing kind of like some other animals. Like, they were making fun of her earlier in the movie for doing skunk, which was pretty funny. And to be honest with you, within the fight scene, there's really nothing to break down. The robots were coming. They destroyed the robots. It was pretty satisfying. It was like this Avatar-ish ending, but not as cool as Avatar. But still, it was very, very well done. And it wasn't until Brightbill ended up breaking through the window of the ship. And what's cool is Bright Bill ended up being so accepted because he saved everybody. He more than just accomplished his task. He is now the leader. Like, he led all of the geese to safety. So he led everybody in this like really, really powerful moment to go and actually save Roz, because now that Roz helped everybody survive the winter, everybody's on Team Roz. Everybody loves Roz, and everybody was defending her. She was one of their own, which was really cool. Roz ended up having all of her memories stripped away, and it was a little bit predictable. That's where I'll knock the movie just a little bit, but what else are you supposed to do, right? They took away all of her memories. She was kind of shut down, but then Bright Bill ended up snuggling up against her and finally opening up his heart, saying, "I love you." And because Roz now has a heart, now has feelings, now is her own person, she doesn't need to rely on the programming or whatever chip they took away or whatever happened to her. She ended up waking up. That's where the unrealistic aspect of it kind of comes. And it was a very, very like happy, saddish moment, like a very wholesome moment. But at the same time, I found myself, this is the only part of the movie where I found myself sitting back like, it's a little much. You could have just had him like go save the chip or something. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else had an issue with it. I didn't even have an issue with it, to be honest. I don't think that moment hit as hard as it was supposed to for me personally. But regardless, it was a very, very nice moment. Roz opened up. She spoke about having her own heart. She's feeling with this. She loves you. They both love each other after so long, after an entire winter. They actually finally got to express to each other how they felt about each other, and they are one true little happy family. The ship was going down, though. The ship was exploding, and Roz ends up ripping her own heart out, and I thought that she was going to die, to be honest with you, because I don't know if there was going to be a sequel, but it looks like there is going to be because of how successful this movie's been. And they set it up, of course, right? She ripped her heart out, saved the bird, and everything's okay. She was running on like her last little bit of battery, but there was one thing the robot said which is funny because Bright Bill couldn't understand the robot because I forgot that they couldn't speak English, right? Or Roz is speaking their own language, and the robot kept saying as it was getting crushed, as it was getting torn apart, like, "We will just keep coming back for you." Roz understands that. Roz cares about all the animals, and even the animals are like, "We'll take them on every single time they come." So Roz willingly chooses to leave the island. Her task is complete. She raised Bright Bill, and this is the part that actually really hit home for me because I felt bad for Fink. Fink finally found a friend, and he was honest. He's like, "What if I need someone to hang out with? What if I need someone to talk to?" And the bear, of all people, the most cruel animal there ever is to live, is like, "You can tell me." And they even put a joke, it's like, when the Roz leaves, I'm gonna eat you. But then they ended up just joking around. Nature ended up being like A-okay. And what's shocking is even Bright Bill's departure from Roz wasn't as hard of a kick as it was seeing Fink kind of finally found his home and then Roz being taken away from him. I don't know if anybody else felt that same way, but that's where the movie really hammered it home for me. That's where I really, really started feeling it, right? Roz ends up actually leaving. It's this really, really horrible, heartwarming moment. Nobody wanted Roz to leave, of course. It shows all of the animals telling stories about Roz, using the other machine to play some movies. All of the animals are getting along in Roz's house. Everybody is getting along. Like, predator and prey can end up working together, which was a beautiful, unrealistic end of a story. Roz ends up working as a regular robot. She expresses to Bright Bill that no matter what, she is her own person, and it's shown that she's her own person because, of course, Bright Bill knows where Roz is going, flies there, and they reunite, which was probably months later, but it was very, very wholesome, and that's where our movie ends up concluding, leaving it open for another movie because I would imagine, first of all, this movie has been majorly successful so far. I would imagine that they're going to be working on another one, and the movie could get quite interesting with Roz trying to leave where she's supposed to be, and I think that would be a really cool next step in the direction they take the wild robot trying to get home to everybody. Maybe removing a tracker. I don't know, but even then you could open it up like the whole movie's about her getting back to the next, like back to our original island, but then all of them have to evacuate because that's the first place that the humans decide to check because Roz ended up leaving. I see a lot of potential with this. So, was this movie the life-changing best movie in the entire world that everybody's been talking about? No. But honestly, it's a solid 10 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it more than Deadpool and Wolverine, though. I still haven't seen Transformers 1. I'm dying to see that movie, by the way. I still haven't seen Alien. Like, having a kid this year has been really, really kicking my time in the butt, you know? But that's okay. Obviously, like, I love her. I love her with all my heart, and I would never trade her for the world. Been watching a lot of movies at home. I had to wait for Wild Robot to end up coming to Google TV and then to watch it, right? But this is where I will leave it up to you. Let me know what you thought about the Wild Robot down below, and thank you very much for being here and watching. Guys, if you want to continue watching the channel, I did a review for Inside Out, if you'd like to see it over here. Love that movie, and if you're into anime, you can check out an anime review down here. I would love to have you at either one of those videos, guys. Take care.